Howdy, Possum Patty. Oh, and little Miss Titi here. And in the wee hours this morning, before Mr. Possum woke up, I just came in and I sat down, and these little scraps that I had die cut yesterday were on the table, and I just started gluing them into a journal. And while I was working on it and looking at my scrap box over there and trying to do some scrap busting, all these ideas started popping into my head. And I decided that I would make a list. And then I was thinking about, how do people put lists in their journals? And I said, well, I could share a few ways that I've done some lists and then work on this page and show you the list that I'm going to make right now. And during the day, surprise, surprise, happy mail. So there's a lot of things to share with you today, so we better get started, so come on along. Before I start working on this, let me put that aside for right now and show you these journals so I can move them off the table. This is my first composition notebook. I started this January 16, 2021. I think I have a playlist for this journal, so I can post that below. And in this journal, I did a really fun page for some list of music. When I started taking keyboard lessons, I call it keyboards for dummies, but it's really keyboard for seniors. I made this page, and my lessons are at Keys to Fun, and I had this old vintage graphic, hits through the years, 1920, 1918, 1900. I took a music sheet and folded it into an envelope. Put a Velcro closure on there. And this is lined with keys because my music place is called Keys to Fun. And then I have that keys paper in the background. And then this is an accordion folded pocket. So this is when I was learning how to do this. So I wanted to put it in the journal, so I would have it. I was learning how to do this. And then on the little journaling cards, I made some lists of the different songs that we were playing. So this is 2020 session number 4, and I have 8 songs there. So we do 8 songs, and then week 9 is a review, and then week 10 is recital. So there are all 8 songs on that journaling card. And here's another one, 2021. I've got 8 songs there, and I got up to number 6. And that's where I stopped because I probably at that point was journaling in a different journal. So in this journal, I was continuing a list of birds that I saw here at Soggy Bottom, either on the property or flying overhead or sitting out on the telephone wires out front. And I started this list, I think in the journal before this maybe, and when I got to this journal, I just continued the list on the back cover, obviously. So up to this point, I had spotted 31 different species of birds. So that is another way I made a list, by just writing it right in the journal. So in this Strathmore 500 series mixed media journal, my art journaling and my nature journaling, all I did was print out these lists from the internet and glue them in. So this is just another way of making lists. And I was trying to figure out the Beaufort number for wind speeds. So this is in the spring, and I'm journaling about the north wind, and I'm watching the trees sway back and forth, and I was trying to figure out, was it a gentle breeze, a moderate breeze, a fresh breeze, a strong breeze, a near gale breeze? So I was trying to figure out the wind speed by watching the trees sway back and forth. So in a moderate wind, small branches move, right? And near gale, the whole tree moves. So I was very interested in watching the trees and figuring out wind speeds by watching the trees. So I printed these out and stuck them in. This is just another way I put a list in my journal. And what was this one? Let's see. Oh, and this is more of a visual list. So I was keeping track of how many different fern plants I saw here at Soggy Bottom. Back then I called it Muddy Acres, 2019. That's when we first moved here, but the Muddy Acres, it turned from muddy to like just very soggy real quick. So I changed it from Muddy Acres to Soggy Bottom. And as I found the ferns, I was drawing them on the bottom of the page. And it's not a detailed drawing. They're just like little squiggly lines with some watercolor in the background there. And so I had a New York fern, a Christmas fern, a royal fern, a cinnamon fern, a hay-scented fern, a bracken fern, sensitive fern, interrupted fern, a lady fern, and a wood fern. So those were all the ferns I saw. I have down here marsh fern, but that is really a no. That turned into something else. It wasn't a marsh fern. So yeah, I just scribbled on my page, but that's okay. It's nature journaling. So this is just another way I put lists into my journals. I do have flip through of all these journals. So I did art journaling in here too. Mixed media, pumpkin pie recipe, put everything in the journal. Okay, enough of that. You hear Titi crying? She wants to go out. That's just a few ways that I put lists in my journals. So if you'd like to tell me how you put lists in your journals, whether you just write it right on the page or the inside cover, or you make a pocket and stick it in, or you print out lists and put them in. I mean, it's all good. You do you. But, you know, if you'd like to share with other folks, you can write in the comments below, you know, the kinds of lists you put in your journals and how you make your lists. Because there's folks out there that just might want to know. All right, knock my rocks everywhere. All right. So like I was saying, I had these scraps out and I was showing you the dies that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I said in the other video that if you don't have a Dollar Tree or you never got this little flower die, which is my fave, that you could comment in the other video and I would send somebody this because I do have a new one to send. All right, so this is mine. I have a backup and I have a new one. So I would love to send this out to someone, but you have to comment in the video that's before this one. And then I was thinking, well, maybe some folks might want this new die if they don't have it in their Dollar Tree or they don't have a Dollar Tree. So I ran back to the Dollar Tree to see if there were any left, and there were a few left. So now in this video, I'm going to give away these two dies together as a set. We'll go to somebody. I can fit those in the envelope, yeah. So, only because I'm loving this one and this one. And you can mix it up with the other dies. Oh, where's the other one I love? I love this one too. So they all have, oh, isn't that pretty on the green? They all have these marvelous edges to them. I have some other border dies. But, you know, if you go to the Dollar Tree for $1, you can get some really three for $1.25, right? Not much. And so while I was there, I was thinking that should have the other original die. And they had one. So this corner die and the flower die will get given away from somebody who comments in yesterday's video. So go back and watch that video if you haven't. And the 2 new dies will be given away in this video. If you comment below that you don't have a Dollar Tree and you don't have these dies, but you already have like a die cutting machine or something and you would really like these, then I will give those away. But you gotta comment below. Yeah, so I was sitting here early in the morning and I had showed in yesterday's video how I like these layered up. And they were sitting here on the table and I just picked them up and I glued them together. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put it in a journal. I'm just going to put it in a journal right now. And this journal was on the table. And this is the one I won from Rhonda at Junk Journal Diva. I added a slow stitch sunflower to the cover. And this is, oh, it's here because I was going to put some Happy Mail in it. I did a Happy Mail page and I had a few more I wanted to do. So I turned the pages and I got to this one. And this is what they call asemic writing. It's writing, but it's really not meant to be read. But I have to, I have to laugh because, Rhonda, I think it's upside down. You're not meant to read it anyway, but I believe it's upside down, but that's okay. It's more like a design than something you're supposed to read. So I just glued it right there as a pocket. A beautiful layered pocket because I love the browns over here. Everything went together really nicely and I'm like, you know me, I like my top borders. So I cut another one of these and that was, where's that die? That was this die. It looks like little rainbows. And I put that up there. I'm putting this all together. And I was over at that scrap box like I showed you before. And I just pulled out some more scraps. And they're under here. And I'm like, look at all these scraps I have. Let me do something with it. Oh, and this is the first one that caught my eye. And I'm like, oh, that would fit awesome in that pocket. And not only does it fit in the pocket, it looks really nice with this paper in the background. And it was already folded unevenly. And I was like, well, I'll just take the die, this die here that looks like faux stitching, and I'll just put that on the edge. And I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. And then I started pulling out all these other scraps. All right, so I said, well, it's white on the inside. Why don't I just go ahead and do a journaling card? And you know me, I don't usually do a lot of things ahead of time. Yeah, I make some ephemera now and then, but, you know, not all the time. And I'm like, oh, well, this fits in here. And I love these evergreen trees. And again, we've got the brown going on there. I said, well, that's cool. I can just trim the edge. It's almost the same exact size. I'm like, okay, well, now I need a piece of paper for up here. And I'm like, ooh, I've got this bark paper. And it almost fits. And I might just leave it like that, white there at the top, like a little bit of lace up there. I might leave it just like that. I'll put this over here. And then there was a little, I know I'm not finished. And then there was a little piece of scrapbook paper that had these leaves on it. And I cut it out and I'm like, well, I could decorate the cover of this little journaling card. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, leaves and twigs. This is a leaf bud for next year. And this looks like a fawn, a baby deer fur. And I've got bark and I've got evergreens. And I'm like, you know what? These things are all the things that I love to look at in the wintertime. So once the plants go to sleep and the evergreens pop out, now you can see all the evergreen plants. A lot of them are very small and very hard to notice when all the ferns and everything is growing. And then without the leaves on the trees, the bark is very noticeable. I like to study the bark. And then, of course, one year I did a really big study on twigs. And the birch trees, a lot of the birch trees, Bless you, Mr. Possum. Did you hear that big sneeze? A lot of the birch trees tend to hold their leaves throughout the winter usually. I mean, they turn brown eventually and fall off, but they hang on to their dead leaves for quite a while. So I'm like, well, why don't I make this journaling card? And then in here, I can put a list of all the things that I like to study in nature in the wintertime. So I was like, ooh, yes, list. All of a sudden, list popped into my head. You know, you can put list of movies you watch, lists of books you read, lists of your favorite songs. A lot of people do their life bird list, right? List of places they'd like to go, grocery list. I do know some people who put actual grocery lists in their nature journal, in their journal. It's like a life journal. Nature is just a part of your life, so you don't really need a separate journal for nature journaling unless you want to. There's my clock, speaking of nature, Oriole o'clock. So I'm going to glue this. I'm going to get this together, and I'm going to write a few things down that I would like to study this winter. And I'm just going to start this page. I'll put this in the pocket. And then, oh, I want to share Happy Mail. I got Happy Mail from Angie. Don't know what it is. Just a few little things to share today. Now this looks like white birch bark. We don't have, I don't think, I've never seen one, a white birch tree here at Soggy Bottom. But we do have some hickory, shagbark hickory. And that's got like amazing bark. Very interesting bark for sure. All right, I'm gonna glue this here. So when we think of evergreens, we think of evergreen trees, but there's evergreen plants. And I have a few here, and one is spotted wintergreen, and one is partridge berry, and one is pyrola. And of course we have evergreen ferns. We have the Christmas fern and the wood fern. And then there's mosses and lichens that you can look at all winter long. It's very cool. And of course, you know, my main thing that I do my rock hounding in the winter. Do it safely after all the snakes have gone to sleep, have slithered off to their hibernaculums to take their long winter snooze.